Oh, hello, and welcome back to Project Leah. I'm still Xavier Mendoza, and today I'll be talking to you about the ADAFURIT motor controller. So motor controllers, they can control motor speed, and on this specific motor controller made by ADAFURIT, we can control up to 4 motors in one single board, and that way we can stack on top of our Arduino board and utilize libraries that ADAFURIT has provided with us. All we have to do is download them, which you will see on our on-screen tutorial. Additionally, the ADAFURIT is sold without any pins, so you actually have to solder. If you do not know how to solder though, there's actually a video link in our PDF tutorial which we've provided for you, so that way you can solder the pins correctly and utilize the board correctly as well. Next, we will get up and close with the ADAFURIT motor controller. So straight out of the packaging, the ADAFURIT does not come with any pins attached. However, you must solder these pins on, and if you do not know how to solder, we have provided a video link on our PDF tutorial. So after you've soldered your pins on the ADAFURIT, we can look at the terminals and what they dictate. So on this blue terminal here, that's actually your VIN terminal. So that's where you're going to connect your battery directly from your voltage regulator from our previous lesson. So on your left is a negative terminal, and on your right is a positive terminal for your wires. So that's just solely for the battery. Provided in your ADAFURIT packaging is a jumper, and these two pins here, you can actually jump them together, so that way when you have your terminal connected, your voltage in terminal connected, you can actually power your Arduino by just using that one power source. So that way you don't have to give your Arduino another power source. So you can actually jump your power down through your ADAFURIT motor controller down to your Arduino and power that. So I'm going to take this out for a meanwhile, and we're going to look at our motor terminals. So on this side right here, on your left, is motor 1 terminal. There's actually 5 ports which you can connect to. The 2 farthest left is actually where you're going to connect your motor. Since your motor only has a positive and negative, we have to use a motor controller in order to control that signal pin so that we can go forward and backwards. Continuing, on your right is actually motor 2, and you can actually call that in the programming depending on where you connected your motors. On the complete opposite side, on your left is motor 3, and on your right is motor 4. So we're actually going to place this on top of our Arduino right now. So what you want to do when you're placing it on top is make sure all the pins are aligned, and then firmly push it down just as such. Okay, so we had this robot laying around, and this robot right here utilizes 2 motors. These are the two, one of the wires for the motors, and here's another wire for the other motor right here. Right here, these 2 red wires are actually power. I've labeled it with the black line, which means the ground, and the solid red one is power. So I'm actually going to connect my power pin to my motor terminal. And the way you do that is by using a flathead, a small flathead screwdriver. Next, we will connect this robot's left motor to port 4. Alright, so we've hooked up our motor controller to our robot that we just had laying around. So what we have to do now is actually download our libraries. So we're actually going to go to the internet to do that. So use a internet such as Google Chrome and you're actually going to type into Google. I'm going to call it ADAFURIT Motor Shield. See, it's already starting to pop up. Motor Shield version 2 library. Press enter. It's going to be the first link you see there. Click on that, and we're going to download the library. So we're going to download the ADAFURIT library. Click on that. It's downloading down here. We're going to see if it did it. So we're going to show in the folder. Okay, it looks like it did it. Alright, so now we're going to open up our Arduino Ide. Give it a second to start up. At this time, you can be connecting your Arduino, which your motor controller is on top of your Arduino, so all you need to do is plug in your Arduino. Alright, so we want to install our libraries. So we're going to go down to include library, add.zip, because we downloaded just a zip file right now. Go down to downloads, that folder. I like to modify the date modified, the quickest way to do it. We're going to choose and open. Since I already have it downloaded, it's going to say it already exists, but for you it should be saying that it has been added. So now we're going to go to File, Examples, and go all the way down to our new library we just installed. For this example, we're going to be running the DC motor test. So click on that. You can close this screen out, make this one bigger. Alrighty, so this is an example of using your ADAFURIT motor shield for just one DC motor. So the company ADAFURIT, they made this program, so they need to include their libraries and all that stuff, you know, all the fancy stuff behind the woodworks. So we're gonna have to include all this stuff right here, and then we have to give it a name as well. So ADAFURIT motor shield. So right here we're actually giving our motor shield a name. So I don't know if you read the ADAFURIT motor shield, you can actually stack 32 of these and have a whole bunch of DC motors, and you can give them different addresses by soldering different ports on the actual ADAFURIT motor shield, which the ADAFURIT website actually has how to do that, how to give it different addresses. But since we didn't solder anything, we're going to give it the most basic default address. So we don't have to mess with that right there. So now we're going to look at what motor we're calling. So my motor, we're actually just giving it a name right there. We're actually calling motor 1 on our ADAFURIT motor shield my motor. We can actually literally call this whatever we wanted to. We can call it elephant, giraffe, whatever we wanted to. For our sake right now, for this example, we're going to call it my motor. Alright, now going to our void setup. Since every Arduino program has a void setup, it's going to run once. We're going to use our serial.begin so we can have our serial monitor in our ADAFURIT so we can see what's going on. This is just going to print out in our serial monitor the DC motor test. It's very generic. Right here is, you see how these two correspond? That's because you're beginning it. So you're basically beginning your motor shield. And the default frequency is 1.6. I'm not going to mess with that. I wouldn't advise not to. I wouldn't advise to mess with it. So I'm just going to leave that alone. And then right here in this section, it's actually starting your motor right here. So in your void setup, it's basically just waking it up in this little section right here. Going down to our void loop, we're going to initialize I right there. Going to print out to our serial monitor tick so that we know when tick is happening. So when tick happens, we're running our motor forward starting at 0, and we're basically ramping it up to 255 in increments of 1. So it's basically doing this at starting at 0, riding it to set motor speed. So it's at 0, it's going to delay 10 milliseconds, and then it's going to go increase 1 all the way until it reaches 255. And while it's doing that, I actually equals, you know, the increments of 1. So it's going to slowly ramp up to 255. Once it reaches there, it's going to subtract as well. So it's going to go forward full speed. It's going to reach 255, and then it's going to go all the way back down to 0. And then talk, it's going to serial print talk. And what that means is actually going to run backwards. It's just exactly what forward did. It's going to ramp from, 0 to being no speed, and 255 to being full speed. It's going to go full speed backwards, and then it's going to take it from full speed backwards all the way back down to 0. And tech is just releasing the motor and then waiting a second, so it's basically doing nothing for a second. It's going to keep doing this, forward and backwards. So we're actually going to look at this on our robot we have here. I changed that because I actually do have a soldered pin. I have the first address, which is 61, but for your run and for your test, you won't need to worry about that unless you soldered it. So we're going to check our tools, check our port. It's actually not connected. Plugging it in. Tools, it pops up. Okay, we're good to go. And we're uploading the code. And we're just running motor 1. It's uploading. And it's done uploading. See how it's going up. And it's going full speed backwards. And we can actually look at our serial monitor here. So it's going to restart when I open it up. So it's going to tick, full speed forward. And it's going to go to talk, which is full speed backwards. It's going to release for a second, do nothing for a second, and then go to tick, which is again just full speed forward. It's going to keep doing this because it's in a loop. So that's the example of DC motor. But say you wanted to run two motors at the same time, or in our case for Leonidas we're going to have 4 at one point. But if we can do 2, we can definitely do 4 later on. So we can just literally copy and paste this section right here. I'm going to copy it, I'll paste it right up in here. And you can hear the motor running. So I'm actually going to turn that off while I program this so you don't hear the motor keep running. Alright, so I'm declaring 4 because in the motor and the robot you guys saw me build when I stacked it on top of that Arduino, it was on top of a robot. So that robot only has 2 motors and it was connected to 1 and 4. So I'm only going to make my ADAFURIT 1 and 4 run. So since I called 1 and 4, I already have my motor name for motor 1, so I have to give for motor 4 a new name. So I'm going to call this motor 2. We'll call motor 2. That's his name for this demonstration. And you literally can just copy and paste everything that you need to. And personally, you actually don't need this. I've ran many tests and you actually don't need this section right here. So we're going to release it just so that we're put our motor on standby initially. And copy and paste this right here. Copy, paste, and you name it my motor 2. Because that's the motor 2, which corresponds to actually motor port 4. And then now, we're going to write our own code right here. So I'm actually going to delete all this right here. I'm going to keep what I need, which is, I can delete that, and I can delete this. And you know what, I want to keep that because I want to copy and paste this right here. So I'm going to copy it. I'm going to call this something else. So that way I know what's going on my serial monitor. I'm going to call this forward. If I knew how to spell forward, that'd be great. Forward. Okay, I got my motor. And I don't really need this anymore because I'm not trying to ramp it up anymore. I can delete this right here. Alright, so now I'm going to tell it what speed. So it can actually, you have the option of going from 0 being off to 255 max speed. So just for the sake of it, we're going to go about 50%, which equates to about 127, I believe. And we're going to do that for both motors. So I'm going to copy and paste this. Call it motor 2 right here. Okay, and we're going to need to delay it for amount of time, because if you don't delay it, it won't ever run. It'll literally just hold it up for a second for this example right here. It's going to hold it forward at 127 speed for 1 second. And I'm going to call this right here. And this is a little quick example of what you can do with this ADAFURIT motor controller. Backward. Alright, so we're going to actually go backward in that same amount of speed, 50%. Actually, so you can see it more vividly, you can go full speed backwards. And what I need to do as well, I never told it what direction to run in. So I actually need to copy and paste these right here. Copy. So what you need to do, and every time you're running a motor, you need to tell it what direction to go in first. So forward, and you'll see this turn blue, or yeah, turn blue right there, because it's a command for the ADAFURIT. So I'm going to do this forward for my motor and motor 2. I need to do it as well for the other one. So like I said before, you need to tell what direction to go in, and then how fast to go in right there. So what direction, forward, and then how fast to do it, 127 right here. And then for our backwards demonstration, we're going to have to say backward at this section. And say backward in all capitals, backward. And then I can literally just paste it right there. So now, and for this section down here, backward, it'll run for full speed. I'm going to upload this. I have to plug it back in. Okay, plugged it in. And uploading. There we go. There you go. It's going, and I'll look at my serial monitor, see what's going on. So I'm just going to restart it up. Forward, backward, backward, forward, backward, full speed, forward, half speed, backward, full speed. And that's basically it. You can do a lot more stuff, with this ADAFURIT motor controller. Control up to 4 motors. I'm only controlling 2 right now for this demonstration, but the possibilities are endless, especially since you can give it new addresses, as for this example I did right here. So that concludes this video, and thank you for staying tuned with Project Leah.